people in her work there, but God had a new plan for Elinor. Elinor had lived in Corupun for 17 years when she began to feel something strange. Some days her heart would start to pound quickly. It made her dizzy and out of breath, and it was a struggle to calm the beating of her heart. Elinor often felt tired and barely had the energy she needed for her work. Then Elinor's legs began to hurt. The nerves and muscles felt like they were on fire. One April day, the pain got so severe that Elinor collapsed. She couldn't even stand anymore. While listening to the radio, Elinor had heard an announcer talking about a disease called post-polio, which only came to those who had polio when they were younger. Oh, that won't happen to me, she had thought, because God needs me here. But as her pain grew worse, she called the missionary doctor in Uranjawa. Do you think it would be post-polio? What's that? The doctor answered. Elinor wrote the doctor a letter, carefully explaining all her symptoms, hoping that the doctor would help her feel better so she would be able to continue her work on the Kamal Bible translation. The day that the doctor received Elinor's letter, an American man on vacation came walking through the doctor's village. This American was a doctor who knew about post-polio. He read Elinor's letter and said this gal needs to get back to the United States to see a doctor. So on August 17th, Indonesian Independence Day, Elinor left Uranjawa accompanied by some missionary friends. She had crutches made from the jungle wood, but she still needed her friends to carry her onto the airplane. The ability to walk, which Elinor had worked so hard for, was now quickly leaving her. Elinor's brother Dick and his wife Sherry picked Elinor up at the Spokane airport. They took her to see the doctor. After the appointment was over, Elinor got into the car. She burst into tears. I can't live in Uranjawa anymore. I have post-polio. Post-polio happened because her muscles, already weakened from polio, were too tired to keep working. Elinor would need to be close to doctors who could help her, and she would no longer have the strength to work on the Kamal Bible translation. Lord, why is this happening? Elinor cried out. She loved the Kamal people and her work there. God had clearly led her to be a missionary to them, even when many people thought it was impossible. Although the translation work was going well, she was not even halfway through translating the New Testament. She had only done one book of the Old Testament. There was still lots of work to be done. How would it be finished? But God was still with the Kamals and with Elinor. He could work through others to finish the translation. And even in the darkest days, God would give Elinor strength and show her his goodness. He could still work through her weaknesses. The days that followed were troubling and sad for Elinor. She missed her friends in Uranjawa. She missed her work there, and not only were her legs in pain, but soon her arm muscles began to hurt. She could barely use her arms or her legs. Elinor grew weaker and weaker. A little machine had to hold up her arms so she could brush her teeth. She could only take about 10 steps each day. Elinor could spend a short amount of time in an electric scooter, but otherwise she had to sit or lie down with a machine that could help her breathe. Was there any way she could serve the Lord now? But even while Elinor was in pain, God was planting new dreams in her heart. Weakness is no barrier to God, Elinor realized. It is just the dark backdrop that shows more brilliantly the light of what He can do. He has planted some new dreams in my heart. They seem to be too hard to do because of the weakness of my body, but I look forward to seeing how God will help me do them. God soon gave Elinor a chance to show His light and serve Him in a new way. Elinor knew that many other people were suffering with post-polio, but while she had the Lord to help her, many others did not believe in God. They did not have His strength to help them through each day. They needed someone who understood their pain to tell them about God and lead them to believe in Him. Elinor decided to start a group for people with post-polio. They could meet and encourage each other. Elinor would be able to share God's love with them and show them that God was still with them, even in the middle of pain. One of Elinor's friends gave her the name of a woman who also had post-polio. Elinor could start with her and see if she would be interested in joining the group. This woman, Charmin, was not a Christian. Elinor knew that, but she didn't know that Charmin was struggling with her post-polio so much that she had thought about killing herself.
Wow.
Just a few weeks before Elinor had to come back to the United States from Jawa, Charmin found herself praying to a God she didn't know. Lord, if you are actually there, show me. If God didn't answer, there would be no reason left to live.
Oh, wow.
When Elinor called Charmin and began to meet with her, they quickly became friends. Elinor often talked about God, and Charmin asked many questions. Elinor gave her books to read. She answered her questions by pointing out the answers in the Bible. Charmin had thought that sin was only killing someone or stealing something. Now she saw that sin was anything that she thought, said, or did that did not please God. Through Elinor, God showed Charmin how much she needed Christ. 3 months after Charmin prayed for the Lord to show himself to her, she became a Christian. Together, Charmin and Elinor studied the Bible. They invited others to join their group, supporting and encouraging each other through the pain of post-polio, while also working together to tell others about God's amazing love. Even though Elinor could no longer be a missionary in Jawa, God was working through her post-polio pain and weakness to bring his light and hope to the people around her. Elinor saw that God's plan for her life had not changed one bit. Whether she was in Koryupan or in the United States, God could use Elinor to share his love and show what a great God he is. Although Elinor rejoiced in her new ministry and knew that God was good, life with post-polio was still hard. She had to lie in bed for much of the day using a machine to help her breathe. When she was up, she had to use a scooter instead of walking. Elinor tried to make this as fun as possible. She named her scooters, one Babe the Blue Ox, and another, painted all pink, Cousin Minnie Pearl. Missing the adventure of living in the mountains of Jawa, Elinor also used her scooter for some adventurous fun, like slipping and sliding all over the frozen puddles outside her home during the winter. But going out was exhausting, and even going to her post-polio meetings often meant Elinor had to stay quietly at home for several days afterwards. She would love to be free of the pain and to have more energy. One day, Charmin heard about a doctor in Mississippi who was trying new therapy with post-polio patients. It was reported that if someone visited his office and did the therapy for 2 weeks, much of the pain and weakness of post-polio would be gone. Charmin decided to try it. Elinor wasn't sure. It sounds like a little bit of snake oil to me, she declared, meaning that it was probably just a trick by the doctor to earn money. But Charmin went, and when she returned 2 weeks later, she was able to breathe without a machine and to walk on her own. Elinor called her older sister Margaret and told her about Charmin's amazing improvement. Well, are you going to go? Margaret asked. Yes, but, Elinor began. We'll take you, Margaret decided. So Elinor went to Mississippi with her sister and brother-in-law. After 2 weeks with the doctor, Elinor's health improved amazingly. She no longer had to use a machine to help her breathe. She no longer had to scoot around on Babe the Blue Ox or Cousin Minnie Pearl. She could not only walk again, but even drive. Her energy began to come back as well. Elinor was not completely healed. She still needed crutches and had to carefully plan to do the things that were most important before her energy ran out, but she was so much better than when she had come home from Jawa. Now Elinor could serve God in other ways too. She began to work with future missionaries, encouraging and helping them as they prepared to serve the Lord in other countries. She started a newsletter for children to tell them about countries and missionaries around the world, and to help them be excited about the idea of being a missionary themselves. When people saw Elinor's improved health and the ministry that she had, they often exclaimed, "Wow, God is good." Yes, Elinor replied, God is good. God is good even if I had come back from Mississippi worse than when I left. The way my life is does not mean God is good or bad. God is always good, whether I'm on my feet singing or lying on my back with the breathing machine. The way I can live my life has changed, yes, but God is good, and his love for me is great, no matter what my body is able to do. Elinor's new strength not only gave her the ability to do more, but it also meant that someday she would be able to return to visit her friends in Jawa. Almost 20 years after Elinor had to leave Java because of post-polio, she found herself once again bumping and dipping and circling through the high mountains on her way back to Koryupun.